All right. Good afternoon, everyone, or magandang hapon from the Philippines. I am Isabel de la Cruz of the International Indigenous Peoples Movement for Self-Determination and Liberation. And welcome to today's session, no? Building Community Resilience in Indigenous Communities from India to Benin and to the Philippines. So the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine have led to significant increases in food insecurity, and some of its impacts for the last few years have had devastating results for indigenous communities around the world, particularly in India, where some members of indigenous communities migrated to urban areas to work as laborers and have become dependent on state-level support for their food and livelihood. However, during this pandemic, work as laborers become scarce, and many of them have had to move back to their tribal areas just to eat and live. In this session, we hear from a speaker from an indigenous community in Kerala who has witnessed firsthand a community revival of skills and knowledge in indigenous and local food and farming practices over the last few years. Also from a group supporting the Lumad, which is the collective term for indigenous peoples in Mindanao, Philippines, who are reviving their cultural practices in food production and working to strengthen their knowledge base and build new practice with the help of local civil society organizations and people's movements. We will also hear from a speaker working with indigenous farmers in Benin on the production of organic cotton, soya, and groundnuts. They will speak about how women farmers are trained to process, improve, and market their quality shea nut butter and other strategies they have developed to promote organic agriculture locally. But before I introduce our speakers for this session, I would like to remind everyone to please be kind and respectful of the speakers and each other. This is an inclusive and respectful environment. It is a collective space for sharing and being with each other. So let's all be mindful of how our actions can impact on others. As I've said, there will be 3 speakers for this session. Our first speaker is Mr. Maruthan K., local leader who is the head of all traditional tribal agriculture of Atapadi, and he is from the Irulas community. And his presentation will be translated from Irula language to English by Jaya Kumar, who is also working in Thanal, Kerala. Mr. Maruthan has been doing traditional agriculture for the last 32 years in his own farm. He has the skills and knowledge about traditional tribal agricultural practices of Atapadi. He is also known as the Manukaran, a local leader who is the head of all traditional tribal agriculture in the area and responsible for traditional celebrations. For the last 4 years, he is also the main mentor for Vodouhe Bala, which is a tribal youth group supported by Thanal, a CSO based in Kerala, India in Atapadi, for the conservation and promotion of tribal agriculture of Atapadi. We also have Eufemia si Cullamat, or Eufemia, from the Lumad of the Philippines, who is with Kalumaran. Kalumaran is a Mindanao-wide alliance of Lumad organizations. Ms. Cullamat is a former member of the House of Representatives who represented indigenous peoples. She is the Secretary General of Kalumaran and the spokesperson of Sandugo, which is the movement of Moro and indigenous peoples for self-determination. She is working towards the recognition of ancestral land rights as a component of agrarian and land reform, and with sustainable agriculture as integrated into the curriculum of the Alcadev Lumad School. She is an experienced indigenous women activist and progressive legislator in the House of Representatives. Our last speaker is Professor Simplice Davo, who coordinates l'Organisation Beninoise pour la Promotion de l'Agriculture Biologique, which is a non-governmental organization in Benin. Professor Davo has promoted organic agriculture since 1994, and he is also a professor at the University of Abomey Calavi, and a member of the following networks: the Benin Organic Agriculture Network, the African Organic Agriculture Network, the West African Organic Agriculture Network, the Pesticide Action Network, Africa, the Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa, and the International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movements. Through his organization, his direct work with Benin farmers reduce use of and reliance on highly hazardous pesticides by promoting organic cotton, organic shea nut butter, and organic soya. His organization works with 6,000 farmers, and among them are about 2,000 women. That includes work with indigenous peoples in the production of organic cotton, organic soya, and organic ground nuts. We will have our question and answer forum at the end of all three presentations. So right now, I would like to call upon Mr. Maruthan from India to take the floor.
മണ്ണക്കാരനെ മണ്ണക്കാരെന്ന് ഏപ്രിൽ മാസം ഒരു മഴ പെയ്യും. ആ മഴക്കാലത്ത് കുറച്ച് വിത്തുകളൊക്കെ എടുത്തിട്ട് റായി ഷാമൊക്കെ കൊണ്ട് പറമ്പിൽ മൂപ്പന്റെ പറമ്പിൽ പോയിട്ട് പിന്നെ അവിടെ കുറച്ച് കൊത്തി കളിച്ചിട്ട് ആ ഈ വിത്തൊക്കെ ഇട്ട് മേലെ മണ്ണ് ഇത്ര വിട്ട് കൊടുത്ത് തള്ളിട്ട് വീട്ടിലേക്ക് വരും. വീട്ടിലേക്ക് വന്ന് ഇവിടെ കറി വെക്കില്ല, തൊമര അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അവരെ എന്തെങ്കിലും വേഗം വെച്ചിട്ട് ഇത്ര കീരൊക്കെ കൂട്ടി ഈ റായി കളിയാക്കിയിട്ട് ഞങ്ങളുടെ ബന്ധക്കാരും ദൂരക്കാരൊക്കെ കുറച്ച് കൊടുത്തള്ളിട്ട് പിന്നെ ഞങ്ങൾ കുറച്ച് കഴിക്കും. അത് കഴിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഞങ്ങളുടെ പുട്ടം വിട്ടു. പിന്നെ ഒരു മഴ പെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ പിന്നെ കോര റായി സാമ ഇങ്ങനൊക്കെ ഇടും. കന്നു പൂട്ടുന്നവർ കന്നു പൂട്ടും, പിന്നെ കൊത്തി ഇടുന്നവരും ഇടും.
അപ്പൊ ഒന്ന് നിർത്തും, ഞാനതൊന്ന് ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ പറഞ്ഞു കൊടുക്കട്ടെ. Maruthan was just talking about Maruthan was just talking about his experience as a farmer. He's coming from Irula community in Attapadi. He is Manukaran in Attapadi traditional tribal language and culture. Manukaran is the head of soil. Just like the hamlet having a chief, there will be chief of soil. So Maruthan is the chief of soil of his hamlet, which is Dhanyam Ur, and he has been advising, he's practicing himself and he is advising his fellow Irulas in the hamlet for the last 30 to 34 years as how do they do the tribal agriculture. And he says their season starts with April, when they do the sowing, first sowing, and it is about a 10-month long agriculture season. And they first do the after the traditional offerings to gods and nature, then they will do the sowing in the farmers in the chief's land or farmland. Then they will make sure that things are in proper, and then they will celebrate with traditional ragi, finger millet, and uncultivated leafy vegetables and peas and a whole bunch of traditional seeds and their food. They eat that food and celebrate that, and that is how the entire community will start their farming process. So it is a very culturally rich farming where Maruthan, who is the head of the soil, known as Manukaran, he is the person who is directing the hamlet to move forward in agriculture, and that was the tradition. And it was broken for a long time, and last couple of years they were able to revive that as part of a project, and now I will ask him to continue more. Maruthan, നമ്മള് ഈ പറഞ്ഞതിന്റെ കൂട്ടത്തില് ഇനിയിപ്പോ നമ്മൾ പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ നമത് വെള്ളാമയൊക്കെ വന്നപ്പോഴാണല്ലോ നമ്മളിപ്പോ വിതവല്ല തുടങ്ങിയത്. അപ്പൊ ഈ വിതവല്ല തുടങ്ങിയപ്പോ എന്തൊക്കെയാണ് ഇപ്പൊ കുട്ടികളൊക്കെ വന്നു, എന്തൊക്കെ കൃഷിയാണ് അവിടെ നിങ്ങൾ ചെയ്തത്?
ഞങ്ങള് കുട്ടികളെ വന്നിട്ട് അവിടെ റായി, സാമ, ചോളം, കുതിരവാലി, തേന, ചോളം, പയറ്, തൊമര, പിന്നെ അവര ഇങ്ങനൊക്കെ ഇട്ട് എടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ട് സാർ.
എന്തൊക്കെയാ ചെയ്ത്
വന്നിട്ട് നല്ല രസമാണ്, താല്പര്യമായി.
അപ്പൊ എത്ര പേരുണ്ടായിരുന്നു ഇവരെല്ലാരും വന്നിട്ട് നിങ്ങളെല്ലാം നല്ല രസമായിട്ട് ചെയ്തു? മ്യൂട്ടായല്ലോ നിഷ. While they fix the mute, yeah. പറഞ്ഞോ Maruthan. പറഞ്ഞു പറഞ്ഞു.
കുട്ടികൾ വന്നാലും കുട്ടികൾക്കൊക്കെ നല്ല സുഖമാണ്, നല്ല ഇഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടു. ഇങ്ങനെ കുറിച്ച് കേട്ടാൽ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് നല്ല താല്പര്യമാണ് എന്നൊക്കെ കുട്ടികളൊക്കെ പറയുന്നുണ്ട്.
നിങ്ങൾ പുള്ളിപ്പുലിയും ആനയൊക്കെ വന്നു തോന്നുന്നല്ലേ? കൃഷി ചെയ്തപ്പോ ആനയൊക്കെ വന്നില്ലേ തിന്നാണ്? What he was saying is that in the last 4 years they started what they call Vedavalla, which is a farmer's in the traditional Irula language it means bowl of seeds. So they started this Vedavalla as a youth program, which was also supported by Thanal and Tribal Agriculture Department. So they brought young people and they started doing finger millet. There are about 6 or 7 different millets. Small millet, finger millet, pearl millet. So they started doing all the millets along with their traditional rice also, the paddy, which is only a small number, whereas millets they have about 8 to 9 varieties. Then they have around 12 different varieties of peas. They have they normally their one cultivation is a mixed farming where they farm around 22 different crops, which some are millets, some are paddy rice, then some are vegetables, some are oil seeds. So that is farmed in together, and he found that farming with the kids has been a fun for the last 3 years when they come and do the farming, and they have been enjoying the work together with the kids. So it has been a revival. മരുതൻ, അപ്പൊ അടുത്തൊരു കാര്യം എന്താണ്? ഇപ്പോ കാലാവസ്ഥയുടെ മാറ്റങ്ങളൊക്കെ ഉണ്ടോ? എന്താണ് ഈ വർഷം പറ്റിയത്? നിഷ, ആ സൗണ്ട് ശരിയായില്ല, എന്റെ മൈക്രോഫോൺ ഒന്ന് ഓൺ ആക്കുക. ശരി, പറഞ്ഞോളൂ മരുതൻ.
3 മാസം എടുക്കാം കോര, പയറ് ഇങ്ങനൊക്കെ വിത്തുകള് 3 മാസത്തെ എടുക്കാം. അതേപോലെ 6 മാസം കോരുണ്ട്, തുമരുണ്ട്, അവരുണ്ട്. ഈ കുതിരവാലിയൊക്കെ ഈ 6 മാസത്തോടെ വരുന്ന സാധനമാണ്.
അപ്പൊ ഇപ്പൊ എങ്ങനെയാണ്? കുറച്ചൊക്കെ കൊയ്ത് കിട്ടിയോ നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇത്തവണ കൃഷിയൊക്കെ ചെയ്തിട്ട്?
കൃഷിയൊക്കെ ചെയ്തിട്ട് കുറെയൊക്കെ കിട്ടി സാർ.
ആനയൊന്നും കൊണ്ടുപോയില്ല?
ഈ കൊല്ലം ആന തട്ടി, കമ്പിയൊക്കെ ഓടിച്ചിട്ട് ആന കുറെയൊക്കെ നശിപ്പിച്ചിട്ട് പോയി. ഈ കൊല്ലം ഒന്നും കിട്ടിയിട്ടില്ല.
പിന്നെ എന്തെങ്കിലും പറയാനുണ്ടോ കൃഷിയെ കുറിച്ച്?
പിന്നെ കൃഷിനെ കുറിച്ച്, കൃഷി കിട്ടുകഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് നല്ലതാണ് സാറേ. കുറച്ച് നല്ല രീതിയിലൊക്കെ പോകണമെന്ന് ഞങ്ങൾ വിചാരിക്കണം. ഈ കൊല്ലം ഏപ്രിൽ മാസമൊക്കെ കൃഷി ഇറക്കണം സാർ.
അപ്പൊ ഞാൻ ഒന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കൊടുത്തേക്കട്ടെ. Maruthan was saying that of the last 3 years, this year they had a little bit problem because they had animal attacks. The elephants came and ate almost all the crops, but they are not upset or unhappy about that. He was saying that elephants came in it, but that doesn't matter. The coming April, they are going to do the planting again. He was saying that they have 3 months crop and 6 months crop. 6 month duration, I mean, what it takes to mature. Like there are some millets like finger millet, which takes, there are 2 crops they have. One is 3-month crop and the other one is 6-month crops. So similarly, every millet like pearl millet, small millet, everything they have 3 months, 6 month different varieties. So it has been a fun doing this different duration thing, and they only do one tilling and one sowing, where they harvest in the first harvest they will make in the 3rd month. When it reaches 6th month, they will make the harvest for the 6-month duration. So it is a kind of a fun which they had, and but he's saying that doing agriculture is always a joy, and he was saying that with the young team he had this time, it was more fun because he has people to listen to him and start following what he is advising them to do. And on occasionally the kind of incidents they had this year, like elephant comes and eating happens, but they are not really worried or bothered about that. And he is looking forward for the harvest in the next, sowing in the next 2 months time. So they're preparing for the sowing. വേറെ എന്തെങ്കിലും പറയാനുണ്ടോ മരുതനെ ഇതിനെ കുറിച്ച്? ഇവർക്ക് ഇത് ലോകത്തിന്റെ പല ഭാഗത്തുള്ള ആൾക്കാർ ഇവിടെ ഉണ്ട്. അവർ കൃഷിയെ കുറിച്ച് സംസാരിക്കാനാണ് ഇരിക്കുന്നത്. അവരോട് എന്താണ് ഒരു ആദിവാസി എന്നുള്ള നിലയിൽ എന്താ പറയാനുള്ളത്?
ആദിവാസികളുടെ കാര്യം പറയാനില്ല. ആദിവാസികളെന്ന് ആ കാലത്തൊക്കെ കാരണവരും കാലത്തൊക്കെ
ആ,
ഈ
പറഞ്ഞോ
കോര
പറഞ്ഞോ.
കോര തൊണ്ട അവര ഇതൊക്കെ
ആ.
ഇട്ടാണ് ഈ കൃഷി എടുത്തിട്ടാണ് ഇവർ കഴിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരുന്നത്.
ആ.
പിന്നെ അതേപോലെ കാട്ടുകൊടി പോയ
ആ.
കിഴങ്ങ്
ആ.
തോണ്ടി അവർ
ഉം.
അങ്ങനെ തിന്നിട്ടാണ് ഞങ്ങളൊക്കെ ജനിച്ചു വളർത്തത്.
ശരി, പറഞ്ഞു.
അതേപോലെ തന്നെ ഇപ്പൊ അത് കാരണവർ ചെയ്ത കൃഷികളെ ഇപ്പൊ പിള്ളേരും ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്.
ഓക്കെ.
അതുകൊണ്ട്
അപ്പൊ നമുക്ക് നിർത്താം ഒരു മിനിറ്റിന് ശേഷം. ഞാനിതൊന്ന് പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് നമുക്ക് ഇവിടെ നിർത്താം. മലയാളത്തിൽ ഞാനുള്ളത് ഇംഗ്ലീഷിലേക്ക് പറഞ്ഞു കൊടുത്തത്. Maruthan was saying that it was quite fun with their, and he as a young boy and their ancestors were doing some farming, and now he got this opportunity to teach the young people about what he as a young person experienced, and at this age he enjoyed doing that. And he was also, I asked him whether there's a message to the indigenous community around the world. So he says there is no specific message, but our ancestors and our cultural wisdom always taught us what to do, and each of us can do that. And he is enjoying this opportunity of working with young people, and that is what he was saying. And again, he was repeating that earlier the life was very simple. They had their own cultivation where they do millets and rice and other stuff, but they go to forest for tubers. So it was a rich diet which they were getting from nature, and they were depending on nature for food. So they are happy that they are able to rediscover and continue this in the last 4 years after a gap of around 20 years. So the last 4 years has been back to his early childhood kind of life, and happy that he could introduce the idea of tribal agriculture to many young people now. Thank you very much for listening to us.
Thank you so much, Maruthan, for that very inspiring sharing of experiences, especially the joy of sharing the skills and knowledges, from the elders to the young who will inherit the future. It's a very inspiring sharing of experience. Our next speaker is Ms. Eufemia Cullamat. Her presentation is written in English. It's already in her PowerPoint, and there will be no consecutive translation for her speech. So, Ms. Eufemia, you have the floor.
Katutubong mamamayan sa isla ng Mindanao sa Pilipinas na kolektibong tinatawag na Lumad. Tulad ng iba pang mga katutubo, namumuhay kami ng simple sa aming mga lupang ninuno. Ang aming lupang ninuno ay ang aming tahanan. Dito namin kinukuha ang lahat ng aming mga pangangailangan tulad ng pagkain, gamot, at hanap buhay. Sa tulong ng mga kapwa naming Pilipino na may puso para sa katutubo at sa kalikasan, ay naitayo namin ang Lumadnong Paaralan. At panatag kami dahil naipasa namin sa aming mga kabataan ang maunlad na kultura ng aming mga ninuno sa pamamagitan ng pagbasa, pagsulat at pagkwenta. Kaya naman, kaugnay ng ating aktibidad ngayon dito sa Oxford Real Farming Conference 2023, hayaan niyo akong ibahagi ang aking kaalaman tungkol sa isang lumadnong paaralan sa Pilipinas, ang Alcadib, na ang kurikulum ay naglalaman ng edukasyon sa siyentipiko at sustainableng agrikultura. Ang Alcadib o Alternative Learning Center for Agricultural and Livelihood Development Incorporated ay isang alternatibong paaralan ng mga komunidad ng Lumad para sa mga kabataang katutubo sa rehiyon ng Caraga sa Mindanao. Itatag ito noong taong 2004 upang magsilbing pang-sekundaryang edukasyon ng mga kabataang katutubo na nakapagtapos na sa elementarya sa Tribal Filipino Program of Surigao del Sur o TRIPS. Ang TRIPS ay nagsisimulang magbigay serbisyo sa edukasyon noong 1980s. Tulad ng traditional DepEd schools, may 8 subject rin ang Alcadib. Pero ang major subjects nito ay science, math, at agriculture. Makabayan, makamasa, at siyentipiko ang vision, mission at goal ng Alcadib. Makabayan dahil hindi lamang sa kabataan itinuturo ang kaalaman ng sustenidong pagpapaunlad sa agrikultura, kundi maging sa mga magulang at buong komunidad upang maipaintindi ang kahalagahan sa pagpapaunlad ng ekonomiya habang pinoprotektahan ang lupang ninuno. Makamasa dahil nakabatay sa interes ng mamamayan ang pagpapaunlad pangunahin sa produksyon ng pagkain dahil ito ang pinakabatayang pangangailangan para sa malayang pag-unlad at makaiwas sa mga mapagsamantala sa kalagayan ng mga katutubo. Siyentipiko dahil ang pang-agham at napanatiling agrikultura ay isa sa pangunahing tatak ng edukasyon ng Alcadib. Nilalayo nitong alisin ang masamang tradisyonal na gawi, panatilihin at pahusayin ang mabubuting gawi ng mga matatanda ng tribo at madadagdagan ng mas advanced na mga teorya sa pagsasaka upang mapakinabangan ang produksyon ng pagkain sa pinakamababang halaga habang pinoprotektahan ang kapaligiran. Halimbawa, inaral ang lahat ng kalagayan kung ang lupa ay mababa na ang nutrients. Kailangan una ang itanim ay ang pananim na tinatawag na legumes tulad ng munggo, mani at iba pa. Kung ang lupa ay talagang wala ng nutrients, kailangang mag-apply ng organikong pataba sa lupa tulad ng ginagawa sa vermiculture. Kailangan ang pag-preserve ng mga native seeds ng mga gulay, mais at palay. At ating binigyang puna ang pamimigay ng genetically modified organism ng government agencies dahil imbes na sustainably at masustansyang produksyon ng pagkain ay mga makakalason pa sa lupa at makasama sa kalusugan ng mamamayan at kapaligiran ang kanilang itinataguyod. Panghuli, iwasan ang paggamit ng herbicide dahil ang mga chemicals ay nakakasira sa kapaligiran. Patunay ang mga ito na kung makaharap man ng problema sa pagsasaka, ang solusyon ay makikita lang sa paligid. Kaya mahalaga ang siyentipikong kaalaman. Ang Alcadib ay pinatunayang posible ang makabayan, makamasa at siyentipikong tipo ng edukasyon. Isinasabuhay namin ang aming napag-aralan sa sustainable agriculture at ramdam namin ang aming malayang pag-unlad. 100% ng aming mga kabataan ay marunong na magbasa, magsulat at magkwenta. Nakamit namin ang sapat na pagkain sa bawat pamilya at sa buong komunidad. Panatag kami sa aming nakamit na pag-unlad sa pamamagitan ng aming naitayong paaralan sa mga lumadnong komunidad. Palagi naming pinapasalamatan ang lahat ng tumutulong sa aming nakamit na tagumpay. Ngunit sa kabila ng pag-unlad na ito, militarisado ang aming komunidad dahil matagal ng target ng mga dayuhang korporasyon ng mina at laging at mga agribusiness na agawin ang aming lupang ninuno. Lagi kaming mapipilitang magbakwit sa tuwing may military operasyon at ang aming mga kalalakihan ay nakakaranas ng pambubugbog, samantalang ang mga kababaihan at kabataan ay pinagsasamantalahan. Sinampahan ng gawa-gawang kaso ang mga leader at membro ng aming organisasyon at ang masakit ay pati ang mga tumutulong sa amin ay kasama sa mga sinampahan ng gawa-gawang kaso, hinuhuli, kinukulong at pinapatay. Pinasira rin ang aming mga lumadnong paaralan. Inakusahan kaming mga membro ng mga NPA or New People's Army upang bigyang katwiran ang mga pandarahas sa amin at pagtakpan ang matagal ng balak ng mga dayuhang korporasyon na agawin ang aming mga lupaing ninuno. Buhay naming mga katutubo ang labanan ang imperialistang pandarambong at pangangamkam sa aming lupang ninuno. Hindi dahil kami ay katutubo, kundi bilang tunay na Pilipino na nagmamahal sa aming sariling bayan. Kaya mula dito, panawagan namin ang muling pagbubukas ng aming mga katutubong paaralan. Hindi dapat ipagkait sa amin ang batayang serbisyo na ito, na siyang nagpupulna sa aming mga kabataan upang matuto at makatulong sa pagpapaunlad ng aming mga lupaing ninuno at sa gayon makaambag sa tunay na kaunlaran at pambansang industrialisasyon ng aming bayan. Ayun lang. Maraming salamat at magandang araw sa ating muli. Magdo no edo o haning no salamat itatibo.
Thank you so much, Ms. Eufemia, for your presentation and for your recorded video. Like you said, and like what Mr. Maruthan has said, we get all our needs, food, medicine, and livelihood from our ancestral lands. It is admirable how the Lumad have set up their community schools for the Lumad youth to develop and strengthen traditional agricultural science and practices for sustainable development, food production, and protection of the environment. But the experience of the Lumad is filled with discrimination, criminalization, and gross violation of human rights. So it is still inspiring to see how the Lumads are continuing their struggle for their rights and their identity. Our third and last speaker for this session is Professor Davo. So Professor Davo, you have the floor.
Good morning, everybody. I thank you for this possibility that you gave me to talk about the possibility about the building of the community resilience in Benin that concerns biological and organic cultivation of cultures. The agriculture is industrialized more by the day. It destructs our environment and the soil. There is also the development of GMOs in certain countries. Fortunately, we have a law in our country providing the use of GMOs at this moment. and women are not in the center of agriculture. And we can see that the culture in the indigenous cultures are being lost every day. And that has brought us to start with another form of agriculture together with other communities in order to preserve the environment, to preserve and protect very useful cultures for our population. And for that reason, we are training the producers to preserve their cultures and the environment, especially the women, to alphabetize them, to teach them how to read and to learn what is going on around them. Also, we are teaching them about the environment management, and we are working on the awareness in what we call the schools for husbands, to teach the husbands to understand their women, their wives. And we are trying to lead them towards the autonomy. And this has brought us results. The resilience strategy of the communities is adapting the production mode, which is more humane and sustainable, using the agroecological practices, family agriculture, and biological agriculture, and organic. And as you can see on the picture on your right, we have a woman on her land, and she uses only biological fertilizers and biopesticides. For this kind of activities, we highlight the role of women and young people. We are encouraging biological cotton, biological because this is the cotton that can avoid using chemical products. And for that, we thought about use of biological organic materials and raw materials, because this will allow us to nourish the soil, because this is what agriculture needs. Also, the production of other biological cultures like soya and anacard. And this way they can produce and still have revenues without damaging the soil. As I said, we were teaching the producers how to rotate different cultures, cultivations, and how not to cut all the trees. We also work on the protection of the local resources. What does it mean? The seeds that we use in rural regions are local instead of the imported seeds. Because if we only import, we lose the local seeds, and the local seeds are actually better adapted to the climate that we have, and they have a lot of potential. And we can see that women play an important role to promote it and to transpose the knowledge from generation to generation. Also, we are also trying to use the forest resources for medicine and therapeutic purposes, which is a fundamental aspect that brought communities to protect certain species and to preserve them. The speaker is having problems with connection. We have also created the alarm groups or alert groups for the natural catastrophes, for the floods, droughts, fires or arsons. And for that, we have a strategy or different strategies for climate changes. And it is really important to talk about it. What is the impact? We can see that there is a protection and transmission of knowledge amongst indigenous people from generation to generation. There is also the development of activities that create revenues for women and young people. We don't have to rely only on scientific researches also. When talking about women and young, I want to highlight that women have the possibility to become autonomous and less depending on their man. Once they have revenues, they can contribute to the training and schooling of women and children, to the health of their family, and they can start taking care of themselves, which was not the case in the past. We can also see that certain women invest the subventions or subsidies that they've got to survive. In the meantime, they invest it in their lands. We are also trying to create socially profitable communities. And we have seen in the past that women did not play a big role, at least not officially, in the decision making, especially not in the economy and development. Their role starts in the offices of the cooperatives, going towards the policies of the villages. And it is very important to work on it. The management of the community is where we have more and more women coming through, where we can give them their role, much bigger role than in the past, where they can give their voice. And now we are going to finish our presentation, showing you a woman who is busy with her activities of transformation, of fermentation of soya, preparing in such a way cheese for the community. I would also like to thank all the partners who contributed in those activities in the rural areas, especially knowing now that we can work more with small producers, with more women, allowing women this way to evaluate, to participate to more activities, not only within their families, but broader. I would like to thank you all for listening to me. Thank you. I'm glad I could contribute. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Davo, for a very comprehensive presentation, no? Centering the role of women in the production, in food production and in agriculture, and also centering the importance of transferring knowledge, agricultural knowledge and practices from one generation to another, empowering the women and the youth through many development activities. It's very interesting, no, how your organization have highlighted the importance of using local seeds over foreign seeds. No, and I believe that this is the kind of discussion that we also want to promote. No, the use of local agriculture or local food production over foreign production. So most of the presentations in this session have centered on the importance of the youth in this transferring of knowledge, in continuing and strengthening indigenous practices on agriculture, and even developing more ways of ensuring food sustainability, and ensuring that the development of the community is not against the economic development of their country. So it's a very interesting session. We will have our question and answer portion for the next session. So we will switch our videos and audio so that participants from the other platform will be able to join us in this Zoom room. So thank you, everyone, but please stay in the Zoom room. And for our participants in the other platform, please click the Zoom link that will be provided to you. Thank you.